What's going on, guys? This is Sharksickle coming back at you with another historic Brawl deck tech. And today we've got a good one. Last time we did Turgid and we were doing mono black evil stuff. And I thought to myself, I need to wash this off of me in some way, right? I don't play a whole lot of black. So I thought, okay, how can I rid myself of this? Well, the only logical solution was to pick a commander that had no black in his CMC, but was every other color. And that led me to Omnath, Locus of Creations, the pretty boy. And what we've got going on here is a Landfall deck. Good old-fashioned, passionate ass-whooping Landfall deck, dude. So this is basically... the goal of this is to play 2 lands a turn once Omnath is on the field. His third ability is nice if your opponents already have planeswalkers or to help kind of get at their life total, but man, those first 2 are what's going to get me going and get me rolling and activate some of the combo potential. There's a lot of really neat things in here, nothing crazy like infinite, but a lot of really cool things, a couple of really cool finishers that I've gotten to pull off. So let's get into it. If you're new to the channel or new to the way that I do things, the way that I break my deck up is not into creatures, artifacts, enchantments, yada yada. It's into packages, it's into themes, whatever kind of term you want to use to determine how you want to word your deck, but I call them packages. So essentially there's several packages in this deck, and we're going to go through them one by one, starting with the Landfall Package. After that is a package that cares kind of about how many lands I have, not necessarily landfall specifically, but if you have this many lands, yada yada, right? Then there's cards that put lands into my hand. There are cards that let me get lands from alternate places or alternate ways to play lands. There are cards that let me put the second land into the battlefield. As you can see, there's a big section of that because that's a major theme. There's a small Mutate Package, and we'll get into that. And then there are my lands that are basically pseudo fetches. I don't have fetches in this deck, mostly just because the rares and yada yada, but my pseudo fetches do just fine, and honestly with the mana fixing that I have to do, there's not a whole lot of basic lands in this deck as it is, so keeping fetches out of it is probably for the best. But we'll get into these real quick, starting with the Landfall Package. So Rune Crab, is it necessary? No, but it's a good blocker. Do I think that I'm ever going to mill them? Probably not, but also not impossible, especially if they're running their own sort of like heavy draw or, sort of discard themes in their own decks. It's entirely possible that I'll get rid of a few of their win cons with this thing. Skyclave Pickaxe, good effect. The fact that it just attaches instantly to a creature is great. Fearless Fledgling puts a counter on him. One of the landfalls in here is Proliferate. I believe it's Evolution Sage, so counters, and there's a couple of planeswalkers in the deck, so being able to put counters on things is good. Nectar Pot, get me a life. Lotus Cobra, one of the better cards in the deck, help me fix my mana. Brushfire Elemental's really good with that haste. You put 1 land down, now he's a 3/3 that can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Gerbo is great when I have multiple creatures, giving all my creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. Skyclave Geopede, +2/+2, and he's got trample, so that's good. Valik Exploration, this one's really interesting, so this could go in a couple different places in this deck. When a land drops onto the battlefield, exile the top of my library, I can play that card for as long as it remains exiled, but at the end step, if there's any cards, they get put in my graveyard, and they deal that much damage to my opponent. So there's a couple of really cool interactions with this. If I've got out Azusa or Dryad, I get to play the extra lands that I get off of this, so that's really cool. But also, once those lands enter my graveyard, there's Excavator that allows me to play lands from my graveyard. So there's some really cool interactions with this card, and it's just going to be pinging my opponent at the end of every turn for 1 or 2 mana, or helping me get to that draw that I didn't think I would have. Also, being able to exile the top card of my library when I have cards that let me play lands off the top card of my library. okay, great, you know, that means that, you know, I can draw that card. Oh, there's a land. Let me play that land off the top of my library instead. So just really cool interactions with this card. I've had a lot of fun with this one in the deck. Evolution Sage, there's that Proliferate we were talking about. Scoot Swarm, one of the best cards in the deck as well. And one of the reasons for this Mutate package that we've got going on is just any way to make him better when he starts popping off on that landfall. That's going to really, really be awesome. You know, if I mutate him with an Octopus, boy, and then I drop 4 or 5 of him on the field, I'm going to get to draw some cards. Territorial Scythe Cat, +1/+1 counter, same deal. He's got Trample, it's a little better. Provisioner, treasure tokens, or food tokens if I'm really hurting, but treasure tokens mostly helping me get those spells dropped. Kazandu Mammoth and MDFC, really nice little modal double face card that allows me to either have my land when I need it. Do I need to play a land this turn? Great. If not, he's going to get +2/+2. He doesn't have trample, but man, I mean, compare him to the Scythe Cat where he gets 1 counter, you know, a turn versus, man, +2/+2, right? Felidar Retreat, really awesome card because it allows me to kind of build up a board if I need to, or if not, let me go ahead and buff the board that I've already got. Spitfire, ping him, 1 damage, ping him, ping him. +2/+2, same deal. You know, second verse, same as the first. McKindy Ox, tapping down my opponent's creatures. This is really great pre-swing if I can drop 2 to 3 to 4 lands this turn. Swing in. All right, let's see what we can do. Nissa, Vital Force. The reason this is in the landfall ability is because of the -6, the ulti. You know, that's 2 turns later. So, you know, if I have to play her on turn 5, upticker, and then next turn on turn 6, -6er, drop some lands, get those extra draws, and now I've got that permanent landfall ability stuck on the field. So not bad. Also, you know, if lands have ended up in my graveyard, I can return those, or I can turn my lands into mans. I mean, it's a good. It's a good ability. Spore Mound, really good 1/1s. Royal, you know, just a better Spore Mound, really. 2/2 elementals versus 1/1 saprolings, but hey, why not both? ¿Por qué no los dos? Am I right? Maya, so other creatures get +1/+1. When a land enters the battlefield, get +1/+1 human warriors. Landfall of draw life, or gain 1 life and draw a card. Great. World Sculptor, this one's crazy. So I get a 0/1 green plant for each basic land you control. It is important to note that it says basic land. I did an RTFC one time and dropped him when I had no basics on the field. Just happened to get to a turn 4 or 5, got up to my 6 mana, dropped him, had no basics, and I didn't get any plants. And that card got a lot worse from there. 6 mana, 5/5. Do nothing essentially at that point, because I don't think anything else in here are plants. Maybe there's one in here and I didn't notice, but yeah, it's hilarious. So that's the first package, Landfall Package, right? Let's move on to this next package. This is kind of just my, you can call these a lot of things, win cons, cares about lands. These cards kind of get a lot of stuff done. So the first one being Dragon Master Outcast. I shouldn't have to explain this one to you. Beginning of my upkeep, 5/5 red dragon, anytime after turn 4, you know, I mean, he's a 1-mana 1/1, so he's gonna die quick, but I might, you know, I might drop him right then, and if you don't have removal for him, or at least make you waste your removal, right? He's just so good for a 1-mana 5/5 flying, essentially. Scurrid Colony, you know, 2-mana 4/4 reach pretty quickly, right? Cosima, God of the Voyage, is pretty good. Pretty good. So I really don't know how to use this card in the deck, and I'd love a comment on what you thought was the better potential way to play this card in the deck. The front side is Cosima, and what she says is, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile her, and when you do, it gets, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Or, I'm sorry, put a voyage counter on it. If you don't, then you put it back on the field with that many counters and that many and you draw that many cards where that was the number of voyage counters. So essentially, if I turn 3 play this, and my upkeep I exile it, turn 4, I play 3 lands on turn 4, and then turn 4 I'm probably going to be playing Omnath, but let's just in this scenario, play 3 lands on turn 4, it gets 3 voyage counters. Turn 5, when it comes back in, it becomes a 5/7, and I draw 3 cards. It's really not bad, you know. Or the other side, the Omen Keel, right, which is the ship that Cosima pilots. It's a vehicle. It only has crew 1, so that's already insane, right? And when it deals combat damage to a player, they exile that many cards from the top of their library, and you can play lands from among those cards as long as they remain exiled. So, I mean, that's kind of bonkers. If you can hit them for, 3 twice, you've exiled 6 cards. Let's say there's 2 lands on there. You ever have that turn where you just miss your land drop for your landfall triggers for a turn? Man, okay, let me steal one of yours. Let me see what I can do. So I really don't know which side's better. I'm sure it's situational. I think that they're both good in this deck. Augmenter Pugilist. This is one of my favorite win cons. Obviously, the front side of it, 3 mana, 3/3 with trample. If you get up to 8 lands, he's a 8/8. Not bad, right? But I mean, in a format like this, a turn 5 or 6 8/8 is not going to win you the game. The other side of this card, Echoing Equation, is kind of insane. You choose a target you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of that until end of turn, except those creatures aren't legendary if the chosen creature is legendary. Let's say, this is turn 9 or 10, and we're in a slugfest. I've gained a bunch of life with Omnath's first ability. I've been able to drop some creatures. We're just kind of at a stalemate. We've both got a board state of 10 creatures. Maybe I've made a couple of tokens with Royal or with Spore Mound, whatever, right? So I drop the back side of this thing, targeting my Omnath. All of my creatures become Omnaths, and it's turn 8. I've probably got 12, 14 lands on the field with this deck. It's turn 8. I play 3 lands that turn with the other abilities in this deck. All of my creatures gain me 4 life. Let's say it's all 10 of my creatures. Gain me 4 life. I've just gained 40 life. Give me 4 mana. So I've got 16 of each color. Other than black, obviously. And then all of them deal 40 damage to you. I mean, it's insane. I've had this card. I was able to drop it on Maya, and all my other creatures got +1/+1. That was enough to win in that instance. And I've also dropped it on Jerboa, and then played 4 or 5, or I think I played 4 lands that turn. Through various drawing, and it was I mean, because Jerboa was cheap, but I think I played 4 lands that turn, so all my creatures got +4/+4, and I was able to swing in for the win there. So crazy combo finisher right there on the back side of that one. Slogurk just gets me those lands back from my graveyard, up to 3 target lands from my graveyard to my hand anytime he leaves the battlefield. So again, we have a couple of different ways to put counters on him, whether it's through name? Where'd she go? The Planeswalker over here. Whether it's through the other Nissa, I have the other Nissa in here that puts counters on him, or whatever, I can pull those counters off and, put them right back into my hand and grab those 3 lands, and even if those lands aren't things that I've even if they're just the Evolving Wilds, Fable Passage, Terramorphic Expanse, I mean, okay, great. I'm going to get all 3 of those back into my hand. And he's got Trample, so I like that. Ashaya, really, really, really crazy interactions with Ashaya. So she makes all my other non-token creatures forests in addition to their other types. So now, every time I play a creature, I'm triggering my landfall abilities. So if I've got Ashaya down in Omnath, now I don't have to worry about how many lands and get capped on how many lands I can play. I can play 2 creatures that next turn, even if I'm running out of lands. So crazy, crazy card in this deck. Rampaging Brontodon, good finisher, man. I mean, if I've got 14 lands on the field and I swing at you with this, you better have some blockers, buddy. These next cards put lands into my hand. They're not as helpful to me because they're not going to put them directly onto the battlefield, but they do help me not miss land drafts. So, Adventurous Impulse, grab me a land off the top 3, open the gates, grab me a gate or a basic land, but I do have the entire gate cycle that I can use in this deck, so great. Traveler's Amulet, basic land, put it in my hand. So great cards. They also let me shuffle, which is nice, or in this instance put onto the bottom. So they basically let me relook at the top card of my library, which is good for this next section of the deck, which is a package based on playing lands from other places. So what if I don't have lands in my hand and I don't have one of these drawing spells? What if I could play lands from my graveyard? I can play the top card of my library that's a land, and as long as I have Coven, then I get to play creature spells from the top of my library as well to help me dig for those lands that I can play off the top of my library. Same deal, I can play lands off the top of my library. I can play lands off the top of my library and play an additional land on each of my turns. and World Shaper, which is another graveyard land recursion. So this one's insane. When he attacks, I may mill 3 cards, and when he dies, put all lands from my graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. That's a great way to trigger landfall about 8 times if he's swung a couple of times. That's this nice little, how can I get lands from other places? This next column is going to be a package based on playing the extra lands. So whether it's a spell that just lets me drop an extra land from my hand, or creatures that allow me to play extra lands per turn, and some of these cards can go into different places, right? Oracle could go into the other, but I think that it fits more into this package. So Arboreal Grazer, really great turn 1. Just let me drop a second land on turn 1. Or later on in the game, 1 mana spell to allow me to play my second mana for turn, or my second land for turn is a really cheap and effective way to do that. Emergent Sequence, I mean, getting the Fractal is kind of nice. If I've already played 2 or 3 lands that turn, grabbing that 4th one and getting a 4/4 for 2 is good tempo. But mostly just to trigger the abilities. Explore, pretty straightforward. Scaled Herbalist, same deal. Gretchen Titchwillow, I think that a 2-mana 0/4 for Bloxies is kind of nice. And then I get up to crazy amounts of mana in this deck, especially if I've got Omnath triggering and stuff, and maybe I don't have anything to do with that mana. Maybe I'll just pump it into this, draw my card, get that 3rd land drop for the turn, and go ahead and deal 4 to my opponent, right? So not a horrible deal there. Growth Spiral, draw a card. It's literally just explore, essentially. Zamone, same deal here. I don't know that I'll ever use the second ability, although it's there again when we get up to crazy mana, who knows. But that first ability is nice, 1 mana and tap a 2 mana 1/2. Azusa, of course. Cultivate, of course. Dryad, of course. Circuitous Root. I like this because it lets me get gates. If they're going to enter tapped anyway, they may as well be the gates, right? And then Migration Path, pretty much the same deal. Loses the Gates ability, but does gain cycling. I'll be honest, I'm probably never going to cycle this card. 2 lands, 2 triggers of Omnath, and 1 4-mana package is very nice. Eureka Moment, draw 2, really good. Nissa, here's that 3+1/+1 counters on target non-creature land you control, untap it. Okay, so I take back what I said earlier about using this to put counters on Slow Gurk. That is incorrect. But still, man lands again, and then that emblem with lands you control have indestructible. Search for any number of forests and put them onto the battlefield. So again, I don't have very many forests, but if I use this to drop 2 forests, awesome. And then anytime I tap my forests for mana, additional green is great. Ren and 7, 0 ability, really awesome. Neg 8 ability, also really awesome. +1 ability, really, I mean, literally just, always great to play Ren and 7, and then Beanstalk Giants, right? The next package is that Mutate Package. Again, this is in here partially for Scoot Swarm, partially for itself. Migratory Greathorn allows me to search for basic lands anytime it mutates, so that's kind of what the goal of it is have my Scoot Swarm out as a 1/1, drop a Migratory Greathorn on him, grab a land, the land triggers Scoot Swarm, he enters the battlefield, right? Parcel Beast is a mutate ability, but also lets me look at the top card. If it's a land, drop it straight onto the battlefield. If not, put it in my hand. Sea Dasher Octopus deals damage, draw a card, and that's a flash. And then this is other creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. So, do I think that I'm going to be triggering this a bunch of times? No, there are only 4 mutate cards on the whole deck, but if that's my finisher, if I just happen to have made a bunch of little, Scoot Swarm tokens, or Spore Mound tokens, I mean, and there's nothing else I can do, let me just go ahead and mutate something, maybe get a trigger off of it, but mostly just swing in for the win. The last package in here is going to be the lands package that kind of takes care of itself. Playing these alone gets me my 2 Omnath triggers, and I will never ever be mad about that. The last bit is the lands here. I did this just kind of my way. You can do it however you would like. If you want to put fetches in there, I don't even know if fetches are in Arena, to be honest with you. If I was building this in regular EDH, obviously there'd be a lot of differences here, but fetches would probably be in the deck. But this is the way that I did it. So 2 plains, a thriving heath, 1 island, a thriving isle, 2 mountains, a thriving bluff, and 4 forests, and a thriving grove. And then I have all of the guild gates, pathways, scry lands, and gain lands for all 4 colors. And then I've got the command tower for mana fixing. So as you can see, really, I mean, and the lands have utility too. That's another great thing, right? If you're going to be dropping 2 or 3 of these in a turn, let me gain a life, man. Let me scry something, you know, let me do some stuff with it. So, you know, that's the idea of the deck, is just drop them all down, combo off. You know, this deck either hits or it misses. You'll run into games where they just kill Omnath about 4 times. You don't necessarily need him to win, but God, the amount of utility he provides, and just puffing up your life total to where you can pillow for long enough to combo off. You know, he's a great target for some of the other combo pieces, you know, like your augmenter and everything. So you don't need him to win, but boy, does he help. So if you run into those games, it suffers a little bit. But I've had a ton of fun playing this deck, man. Just a good old-fashioned Landfall, brawly sort of, I mean, you know, very little interaction with the opponent, which some people hate. I think that's my favorite way to put it. Let me do my thing, you know what I mean? You can counter me and yada yada, but like, let me do my thing. So let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the comments what sort of changes you might make. I think that if I had another mythic card, because I spent it on Dragon Master, I would probably add the other Omnath in here, just because he triggers all about elementals, and there's a good handful. One there. Zendikar Royal creates elementals. This is an elemental. I mean, like, there's that's already enough. But you know, that I would probably put him in there. I'm sure there's a couple others that I'm not thinking of that would probably be good fits. There's an elemental. So I'm sure there's a few others that would probably be good fits in the deck, but let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the comments what changes you might make. Again, this has been Sharksicle Gaming. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you have enjoyed the video. Bye.